Hey guys, it's Christy and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to rank every single palette I tried in 2022 from worst to best. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and let's get into it. Alright, so we have 30 palettes to rank. So let's just hop right on in. Coming in at number 30 is from Too Faced, and this is their Femme palette. So this is one that was actually leaked at the end of last year, and I believe this came out in either maybe January or February of this year, and I was so excited. I mean, this packaging is absolutely adorable. I really liked the teddy bear palette that they released last year that was in a somewhat similar format, so I thought that I would really end up loving this as well. And I just thought this would be the most perfect palette for spring. It's got like a really pretty mix of neutrals to kind of anchor things, but then it's got these beautiful pastel shades and these shimmers. It is the same very expensive price point that we expect from most Too Faced palettes, and the quality is absolutely awful. While these neutral shades were for the most part fine, there was very, very little pigment to the rest of these mattes. The shimmers are very chunky. This really pretty purpley shimmer right here I thought was going to be perfect, and it was just also impossible to build up. I was so disappointed in this palette. Coming in at number 29 is from Artist Couture, and this is the Supreme Mauves palette. So this was actually my first experience with Artist Couture. I've always thought that their packaging was very sleek and beautiful, and I've been kind of curious to try out the formula for quite a while, and this was not a good starting point. I thought it would be. I love this type of mauve-y color story, as you will see in the rest of the ranking. I love this type of color story, but this one is just not it. These shimmers are so dry, and some of them lack pigment, some of them are just so super dry that you can't really do anything with them. You can tell that they kind of look messy in the pan, like especially this one, Risque. So messy. The mattes, for the most part, are fine. It's just that this formula is not it. This is just not a very good formula. This is another very expensive palette. I'd heard such good things about the Supreme bronzes. So when I saw this come out, I thought this is the perfect palette for me to try, and it just was not. I unfortunately really do not like this palette, which is such a shame because, again, the packaging's gorgeous, the color story looks gorgeous, but the quality is just not there. Okay, coming in at number 28 is another Too Faced palette, and I'm not meaning to hate on Too Faced, I'm really not, but this is their Better Than Chocolate palette. And this one was released early on in the summer, and I thought this was going to be perfect. Love the neutrals. I love that it kind of smells like chocolate. I love this color story. You even get this little blue here that actually has a bit of a purple shift to it. And then you get this really pretty purple, but for the most part, this is a very neutral color story. But I thought I would really enjoy it. And similar to the Artist Couture, the mattes are perfectly fine, but the shimmers are where I'm so disappointed. Half of these shimmers were just really, really dry, and then the other half of them they have no pigment to them. They're impossible to build up. I just really did not enjoy that. This one I expected to be so beautiful, but it's so sheer, and you've just really got to work to get anything out of these. So I was really disappointed, especially when one of the only colorful shadows in here has no pigment. I was just so disappointed with this one. So this one is unfortunately ranking quite low. I don't dislike it nearly as much as the first two I mentioned. Those are the absolute worst of the worst. But unfortunately, I just can't rank this one very high when I know I've got palettes later in this ranking that are incredible. Coming in at number 27 is from Urban Decay, and this is the Wild Greens palette. So this one, I heard a very polarizing opinion. Some people love this one and some people just really do not. So the packaging is unique and the color story is really beautiful. I did expect a little bit more green out of this, given that it's just called the Wild Greens palette. I really do like the color story. I really do love this top row. It's so beautiful, and the greens are fine as well. What I don't love is just that this is not their top-notch formula. This is a fine formula. I find that these shades really, really take a long time to build up. There's just not a ton of pigment in these. So overall, this one isn't terrible. It just doesn't have a ton of pigment to it. And for that reason, I just ranked it lower just because it really just doesn't stack up compared to some of the others that I have. I do not mind this one, but I do have better. Okay, so now we're gonna move a little bit more into the fine but not amazing category. Coming in at number 26 is actually from Natasha Denona, and this is the pastel palette. So the outer packaging is absolutely beautiful, and the color story is also beautiful. This is one that, in my opinion, is more of a companion palette. I need something else to dip into for my own personal preferences. It's just very shimmer heavy. It is a pastel palette, so kind of to be expected. I think it's absolutely gorgeous for the spring, and I will definitely continue to use this a ton come springtime. It's just that there are palettes I like a lot more. I typically don't go for these more pastel color stories, and I knew that when I picked this up, but I also do review pretty much everything Natasha releases, so I really had to pick this up for a review. I'm not sorry that I have it. I think it's beautiful. There are definitely looks that I want to create and play with a little more this year as well. Again, it's just not the one I reach for the very most, but outer packaging, she killed it. Hey guys, I'm just editing this back and I realized I completely forgot to include the Urban Decay and Robin Eisenberg palette. That one would rank around 24, 25. I think it's really pretty. It's a little more colorful than I typically reach for, so it's just not one I reach for all the time. I think the formula is fine. I don't think we needed 3 bluish shades. I think they all have a very similar shift, so I don't think that was necessary. Overall, I think it's perfectly fine. It's not my favorite colorful palette, but it's not my least favorite either. It's just not one I reach for a lot. Coming at number 25 is a pretty recent release, and this is the Pat McGrath Labs Mothership Mega Celestial Nirvana. So this is the big one. And this is pretty. It is very, very pretty. I do like to pick these up every year also. This palette is quite beautiful, but you can tell it's also very, very colorful. I do tend to prefer more neutral shades, but I am excited to have more color from Pat in my collection. I also like the way she laid this out into 6s, so you can kind of look at it as a 6-pan palette whenever you're trying to create a look. I do kind of like that as well. It just makes it so much more intuitive. I think these shades are beautiful. I think the textures she played with are great. I think she did such a good job with this. It's beautiful. It's just, it is very colorful for me, so that's why I don't reach for it as much. It's great. It's just not what I reach for as much. So that's why this one's ranking a little bit lower. Coming in at number 24 is one I picked up at the very tail end of last year, and this is from ColourPop, and this is the Gone Matte palette. And I do like this because this is so good for when you have companion palettes in your collection, like the Natasha Denona Pastel. I could grab for this if I need a little something more, if I wanted to. I just think this is a very convenient type of palette to have. Is it a necessity? No. Could I still make different things work without this? Absolutely. And is this my most reach for palette? Also no. But I do think it's so great to have, whether you like all matte looks, this is wonderful. But if you're just looking to have a palette that sort of has everything that can stand on its own, but that can also be a really helpful companion to bolder options, I do think this is great, and I do think they did a good job with it. Coming in at number 23 is another ColourPop palette, and this is the Troublemaker palette. So I thought I would like this a lot more than I do. It's very pretty. I do find it to be a bit more unique. I really love this baddie shade right here. It's almost like a creamy formula. I really like that. This silver is beautiful. I love these purpley tones. I love the cool tone palette. I think this is beautiful, and it's one that I definitely have been having a little bit of fun with. I just don't reach for this color story as much as I thought I would. However, I do think it's a little bit more on the bolder side for ColourPop, which I enjoy, and I love a good purple moment. So I'm glad I picked it up. It's just not the one I reach for the very most. Coming in at number 22 is actually from Anastasia, and this is their Rose Metals palette. So this was their holiday release for the year as well, and I think it's pretty. The quality's great. I do feel like this year was definitely the comeback year for the brand, and I think they're doing a great job. I think their formulas are really, really great. I think I liked this a little bit more when I saw it in photos. I do love how the packaging is meant to look a little bit like worn leather. I do like that. However, it does throw me off to see the metallic-y kind of background against the shadows. It does throw me a little bit. And this color story to me is definitely much deeper, more grungier, which was the intention. And that's just not my typical taste. That does not mean it's a bad palette. It's not at all. It's really good. The quality is great. It's just not a color story I reach for a lot. I'm not into those very grungy looks. And I did like the color story a little bit more in photos before I actually got it. So not a bad palette, great quality. I think it'll be beautiful for the fall. It's just not my favorite color story to reach for. Coming at number 21 is from Viseart, and this is the Paris Love Letter palette. So these palettes from Viseart are such high quality, and you can see this one is a really beautiful, very spring color story. It's stunning. The quality is so good. The color story, very beautiful, very easy to work with, very intuitive, very neutral, of course. But the only thing I will say is that this one is very, very light. I mean, aside from this one matte here, there's really not much depth. For that reason, I just kind of put this one a little lower. I just don't reach for it as much, given that it is so light. So for that reason, it's ranking a little bit lower, but it is still a really good palette. Okay, coming in at number 20 is a palette that really did surprise me, and this is the Huda Beauty Love Fest palette. So I've said many times how skeptical I am about her 9pan palettes, but this one is actually so beautiful. So the orange and purple color story, not typically my favorite, but so beautiful. The formula on this is so good. The shimmers are actually very beautiful, very high quality, and the mattes work beautifully together. She did a great job with this palette. I was very, very pleasantly surprised at how much I ended up liking this and the formula on this one. Like I mentioned, sometimes her 9pans are very hit or miss. Sometimes the quality is just not good at all, but the quality of this is very, very good. Now we're moving into the they're great, they're just not my tip-top favorites categories. So coming in at number 19 is from Kaja, and this is their Beauty Bento Stack in Peach Madeleine. This is beautiful. This is so good. I think this is such an underrated product. So they do have a lot of shades of these, and this one is in Peach Madeleine, so you get a matte kind of peachy shade. Then you get a glittery topper, and then you get one that's almost like a cream glitter shade. It is so beautiful. I love this stack. I love how easy it is to create a look with this. I love how simple it is. It's obviously only 3 shades, so I really don't have to work too hard. I can really build up this matte, so in the crease, and then just really pack it on in the outer corner, and it looks like I used more than one matte in the whole look. And these shimmers are just so beautiful and impactful. I love reaching for this. It's just so easy, and I really, really do enjoy this. I do get a little bit of follow, but overall, this is just stunning. Coming in at number 18. So some of you might remember back in, I think, the spring, the Pat McGrath website ended up having a huge glitch, and there was an amazing sale for a while. So I picked up 2 motherships during that time, and one of them is the number 18 palette. This is the Bronze Seduction. Obviously, the packaging of the motherships is very high quality, and the color story is beautiful. I did pick up Bronze Seduction because it is very neutral. I thought this is a great color story, and it is. It's very pretty. I just don't know that the formula is so much better than everything else in my collection. I think this is really great. I just don't think it's worth a super obnoxious price point that is on these motherships. I am, of course, thrilled that I did get this on sale. I do think these sparkles are beautiful. There is quite a bit of follow, but overall, I think this is very pretty. It's fun to use. It's definitely a very luxurious experience to reach for. I don't know that the formula of these is so much better than everything else, you know? So coming in at number 17 is another Pat McGrath palette, and this was one of her holiday releases. This is her Quint in Nude Allure. So I reviewed these, and I do love them. My only con with these is that there is only one matte. I could definitely have done away with one of these shimmers and thrown in an additional matte. And I also say that because the matte in here is the creamiest matte I have ever used. It kind of reminds me of the Natasha Denona cream to powder formula. It's just the best matte formula I have ever used. The shimmers are beautiful. There is a lot of fallout, so you do want to do your eyes first. but the formula is really, really great. It's just, I think the only reason this one ranks a little bit lower is, like I said, there is only one matte. But overall, I do think this is such a beautiful palette, and the quality of these quints is so good. I think the quality of these is better than her Mothership Mega palette. I would say it's at least on par with the full-size Motherships. Obviously, you don't get a lot of the special formulas that you get in the full-size Mothership, but I think the formula is on par. Coming at number 16 is the other Mothership palette that I picked up during the sale. This is the Divine Rose 2 palette. So this is really beautiful. I love a good rosy pink color story. I just do. So I ended up loving this so much more than Bronze Seduction, which really surprised me. I also love this shade here that's got that fuchsia green shift to it. I just love it. Of course, I feel like we've seen a lot of shades similar to that come out this year. We have one in the Natasha Denona My Dream, and it's here as well. But I do really just love this color story in general. I think it's so beautiful. I think she did a great job with this one. And I just have a little bit more fun with this color story than the Bronze Seduction. So this one is ranking at number 16. Coming in at number 15 is a ColourPop palette that I picked up at the same time as the Troublemaker palette, but I like it so much more. This is the Clay It Cool palette. So this is obviously a very warm tone color story, and I've heard a lot of people compare it to the Patrick Ta Major Dimension 1 palette, and I can totally see that. Very, very similar. This also does come with a cream shade right here in the corner. It's just the one cream shade, but it is really nice. You can use it as a base, or you can use it to cut the crease if you want to, which is what I tried to do. And I don't think it was the strongest crease shade, but it might work very, very well as a base shadow. I loved this color story. I was surprised. I thought it might be a little bit too warm for me, but once I got playing with it, it is so beautiful. I really, really enjoyed this. I loved the look I created with this one. I think they did such a great job with this. I feel like the quality of this palette is so, so good. The reason it's only at number 15 is simply because I don't think that cream shade is the best. But overall, this is such a high quality ColourPop palette. So really loved this one this year as well. Coming in at number 14 is from Anastasia, and this is the Nouveau palette. This one came out, I believe, back in June, and this is beautiful. So definitely an emphasis on the greens with a pop of purple. I think this actually reminds me quite a lot of the Urban Decay Wild Greens, but the quality is so much better. The color story is very similar in that you get some of these greens, but then you also get these more warm tones over here as well. The quality of this is just so good. The packaging is beautiful. I love that it's very textured. I just think this is such a beautiful palette. They did such a good job with this one. It's probably not the one I reach for the very most, simply because it does have a little bit of a grunginess to it, and this peacock shade, I do not like these browny, blue, brown type shades, just because I find they make me look really tired, and I can do that on my own. So for that reason, this one isn't in the very, very top spot, but it's still ranking pretty high because I really do love the quality, and I think this is a phenomenal palette. Okay, coming in at number 13 is from Charlotte Tilbury, and this is the Pillow Talk Dreams Quad. So this one came out, I believe, back in the spring, and this is so beautiful. So if you are familiar with her original Pillow Talk Quad, it leans very pink, and this is like the deeper version of that palette. So if that one is like a daytime, this one is definitely more your evening option. However, I like this one a little bit more because you do get so much more depth with it, and the shimmery shades are so much more sparkly and reflective. I think this is beautiful. I think it's very high quality. I do think her quads are overpriced. I really do. They're beautiful, but I don't think they're so special that they warrant the giant price tag. However, I do think this is a really, really beautiful little quad. I love reaching for this one. I've had so much fun with this one, and I definitely prefer it over the original Pillow Talk Quad. So I really do love this. And then at number 12, we have from Natasha Denona, the Mini Bronze Palette. So this is really, really pretty. This one has 4 mattes and 1 shimmer. This is beautiful. If you already have the full-size bronze, I think this is totally irrelevant. They are different shades, but you can get a very similar look. I think this is beautiful though. I love it. It's just very intuitive, very easy to create a look. I do wish maybe there was one more shimmer. Maybe if they subbed out this one for a shimmer, maybe, but overall I think this is a great palette. I think it's really, really pretty. Coming in at number 11 is from Viseart, and this is the Violette Étendue palette. This one I really love. So my favorite palette of 2021 was the Nirvana Volume 5, and that is still such a favorite. And this one I feel like really gives that type of vibe. I think this is beautiful. This is so beautiful. One of my very favorite palettes from 2021 was the Nirvana Volume 5 palette, and this really dupes that vibe in my opinion. Obviously you get so many more options with the Nirvana, but for travel, this one is going to be so much better just because it's so much more compact. I think this color story is absolutely stunning. I love this. I love the quality of Viseart shadows in general. They're just very high quality shadows. I think this is stunning. I think they did a great job with this one. This one's so pretty, and I do want to leave this one out and play with it a little bit more. Coming in at number 10 is the very anticipated Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette. So this one got leaked months before its actual release, and it's a beautiful palette. This one was very anticipated. I do feel like this is what she should have released when she initially released the retro palette, which is just such a beautiful mauve color story. It ranked very high for me last year. So she came out with the Retro Glam, and I do think this is a perfect older sister to the mini retro. I think this is beautiful. I love the color story. I love the greens. I love the pinks. I know a lot of people have mentioned that this is just really not a very holiday release, and I do agree. I do think this is going to be reached for a lot more in the spring. However, just looking at some of these greens, I do still sort of see that frosty kind of effect of maybe late winter. So I can see that as well. No, I don't think it's a holiday release, and I think she may have pushed it out sooner than she should have, but I do think it's very beautiful, and I really do enjoy it. The formula is excellent. It is her typical formula. You do only get one cream to powder in here. That's the shade Evergreen. And it's a really beautiful palette. The only thing is that we have these two deeper shimmers. I don't understand why one of them couldn't have been a matte, like a dark matte brown or even a darker green. We do have Evergreen, but it's really not the deepest. I do wish there was a much deeper matte in here to kind of pull everything together. I mean, these two are different, but they also look similar enough. I think we totally could have done without them. But overall, I love this palette. I think it's really, really beautiful. It's been really fun to play with, and I definitely look forward to reaching for it a lot more in the springtime. Coming in at number 9 is a drugstore eyeshadow quad that I feel dupes the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Dreams quad, and I like it better. This is the Oma by Sharon C Eye Service eyeshadow quad in Dreaming. So this brand only just landed in Walmart Canada, but when I saw this quad, I do have the two other ones. I just haven't had time to try them out, but when I saw this quad, I picked it up immediately. It was around the $10 price point, and I don't have the highest hopes when it comes to drugstore shadows. I just haven't had the best experience with them. I feel like that's the one place where the drugstore is still trying to catch up. But when I tried this, I loved my look so much. I think I immediately made a TikTok talking about how I think this is comparable to the Pillow Talk Dreams and how I actually like it better. You know, this is $10, that is $55. Why would you not pick this up instead? The shimmers are so beautiful. They do feel a little bit more on the dry side, but on the eyes, they are so sparkly and reflective, and they just look so pretty. And the mattes blend perfectly. This is a really, really high quality quad for a very fair price point. And honestly, if it's rivaling Charlotte Tilbury, I cannot say enough good things about this one. Coming in at number 8 is the other Quint from Pat McGrath for holiday. This is the Bronze Bliss. So this one is definitely deeper, more bronze than the other one. This one only comes with a matte black, which really threw me off. Like I mentioned, I am not somebody who typically uses a lot of black unless it's for eyeliner. But with this one, I was able to blend this out in the outer corner, really deepen things up, but I was also able to sheer it out so it was very wearable and it wasn't too deep for me personally. And it looked so nice. These bronze shades are really pretty. This one here is really pretty for the inner corner. It's very reflective. But this shade in the middle, Lunar Luxury, is the most beautiful silver shade. It looks almost like a cream. I love it so much. I was so taken aback when I reached into it and it just felt so soft and creamy, but it applied to the lid so beautifully. There was no fallout because it is creamy, and it was so unbelievably reflective. I love this one. I do have reviews on most of these somewhere here on my channel, but I loved this one so much, and I am definitely going to be doing, I think, a New Year's look with this because I just loved it. Coming in at number 7 is actually a palette I thought was going to rank a lot higher, but this is the My Dream palette from Natasha Denona. So this one is beautiful. You do get a really nice range of neutrals, but you also get some pinks. You get a duochrome here. This is the fuchsia to green shift I mentioned earlier. You do get some deeper purples. Overall, this is just a really, really pretty palette. It's high quality. It's exactly what we expect from Natasha. I think it's a great palette. I love that she put a duochrome in here. I think that really adds to the uniqueness of her MIDI palettes personally. I think she did a great job with this. I think the formula is great. I think this is a great everyday palette. I think this is a great way to put a fun spin on an everyday palette. So I think she did a great job with this one, and I really did enjoy this. Coming in at number 6 is from Nars, and this is their summer unrated palette. So I don't think you can get this anymore. I was so shocked at how much I like Nars eyeshadow formula. I had never tried their formula before this palette, but I found this at Nordstrom Rack for a really good price, and I knew it was this year's palette, so I picked it up, and I love this. This is a perfect everyday eyeshadow palette. The pinks are so beautiful. The mattes just blend together so easily. It's almost just like they're a satin, but they just look so, so, so pretty. The shimmers are really, really pretty as well. This is just such an easy palette to work with. It's so easy, but it looks so pretty. It looks like you put in such an effort, and I think this is a really, really great palette. I don't know why they do these limited edition every summer. Just leave them permanent. This is way too good to be a limited edition. Coming in at number 5 is a palette I tried quite recently because it was on sale for half off at Sephora. This is the Natasha Denona Biba palette. So the mini Biba I have raved on and on and on about. I love that one. And this is one of her full-size palettes. So this is one of her $129 palettes. That's very pricey, especially for a boring basic neutral palette. I do think this could have been a midi palette and we would have been happy. However, the formula is perfect. It is Natasha's typical formula. There is quite a bit of cream to powders in here, but I really enjoy them. This formula is so good. I do wish there was perhaps a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 more shimmers, but overall this is just so easy to work with, and it's so fun to play with because I know I'm always going to like the look. Again, it's just a boring neutral palette, so I'm always going to like it. I am glad I have it. I love it. I enjoy it. I'm definitely going to continue loving on it because it's just a color story that I love. So I do love this very much. Coming in at number 4 is another neutral palette, but this is a brand I tried for the very first time this year and fell in love with. This is the Lunar Beauty Nude Prism palette. So this one I picked up because I like to say this is me and a palette. This just has a perfect range of pink and brown neutrals, and then you get this layer of shimmers in the middle. And these shimmers are the smoothest shimmers I have ever used, and I love them so much. They just look so beautiful on the lids. There's no fallout. They're just so smooth and shiny and beautiful, and I think he did such a great job with this palette. I love how it goes from very light to all the way to black. I think he did such a great job on the range, and again, that shimmer formula is second to none. I love that shimmer formula so much. I think that because the shimmers are so smooth in here, they just look really pretty and reflective on the eyes, but they don't enhance any texture. So I think this is a formula that's going to be very, very friendly for more mature lids or just more textured lids. This would be great for that. I love this. This is one I just consistently reach for. And I would say it's going to be one I'm going to reach for a lot, especially in the spring, given the lighter color story. But this is one I reach for all year just because it is perfect for any time. Coming in at number 3 is from Sigma Beauty, and this is the new Mod palette. So this one was released back in the spring, and I have been eyeing this up for ages, and finally I picked it up on a Black Friday sale. There is another Sigma palette that I picked up, but I have not used it yet, so it's gonna have to be in next year's ranking. This is stunning. This is so stunning. I love a good mauve color story, as we know, but this one definitely dupes the vibes of the Natasha Denona Retro, and I love the formula. It is so good. The shimmers are so pretty. I love that you can get some basic brown looks, but you can also go into the more mauve territory. I love it so much. The only thing I don't love is how reflective this gold backing is, because I really do find it throws me off a little bit with the shades. But I love the pink velvet outer packaging, and then I love this color story so much. They're so beautiful. The mattes are so easy to work with. The shimmers are gorgeous. They're also very smooth, and I just really, really enjoyed this palette. I have tried the 9 pans from Sigma, and I don't feel like they're as high quality as this. That could just be me, but I do not think they compete with this. And coming in at number 2 is the Patrick Ta Major Dimension 2 eyeshadow palette. This is the one I'm wearing today. So last year he came out with the brown neutrals. This year is the rose neutrals, and this is so beautiful. I love this palette. I love the cream shades. I actually used this deeper one as a liner today, and I really liked how it turned out. I love how easily these mattes blend together, and I love these shimmers. The shimmers almost feel sort of wet when you get in there. On first swipe they feel a little dry, but when you dig your fingers in there a little bit, they start to feel wet, and that is so interesting to me. They are such high quality. They are so shiny and so pretty. I really, really love this formula. I think the formula of his first palette was good, but somehow he made it even better with this. So I love that, and I cannot wait to see what he comes out with next for eyeshadows. But coming in at number 1 is a palette that I was not expecting this year at all. And some may say it is the most boring of palettes to release this year, and you'd probably be right about that. But this is the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette. So Mario does not release a ton of eyeshadows. His last palettes he released in 2020. And I had no idea this was coming out. I know this is the most neutral, boring palette of life, but I love this so much. These are just mattes that I reach for and enjoy and reach for all the time. And the shimmers are just so sparkly. They are so sparkly and so pretty. They are perfect for this time of year. But when you use this palette, you don't even have to use them if you don't want to. You can just create a matte look. But the glittery shades really do make it so much more special, so much more pretty. I love how reflective they are. They look so beautiful on the lids. There's been quite a few times now where I've just taken this shade all over the lid, and that is the look. And I love it. This has definitely been my favorite. I know it's been sold out. I think it's back in stock now. If it is, I will link it. But I have just really, really loved this one. This one was by far my favorite this year. So that is it for this rankings video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know down below what your favorite palette of the year was. Let me know if you want to see looks with any of these palettes in particular. I can definitely do that. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support all year long. I appreciate you so, so much. And the day that you're seeing this, I believe, is Christmas Eve. So I do want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas if you celebrate. If not, I hope you just have a very wonderful weekend. And thank you so much for your support all year. It means the absolute world to me. So thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!